Spiral Dynamics, second tier, colors 7 to 12, yellow, turquoise, coral, teal, plum and aubergine, the essences, weaknesses and strengths. Hello, this is Chris speaking, Shores of Infinity, with another video about Spiral Dynamics, this time how to progress from color to color. What's missing so that you can go into the next color? What do you have to transform? And please remember, no color is better than another color. It's not a vertical linear upwards stairway or ladder. It's a spiral. And every color is based upon the previous colors. We don't move from color to color. We integrate more and more. We build upon the basis. And the basis for the second tier is the first tier. You need to go through the first 6 colors: beige, purple, red, blue, orange, green. Some people try to leave out red and orange because they think they're evil colors, but it's necessary for the personality development. Once your personality, your ego is developed, then you can progress to the dismantling of the ego, to the letting go of the ego, and to the flowing with the flow, letting go and following your intuition. Rediscovering your soul. The first tier is about building your ego. The second tier is about dismantling the ego and building up the soul and the intuition instead, starting with yellow, the first color of the second tier. Here, your understanding reaches another level. You can see everything from a higher perspective, from a bird's eye view. You can see the big picture, the big scale. The danger of yellow is that you overestimate the power of your mind. It's still the mind. You can use your mind now better than before, but it's still the mind and it's still very, very limited. What you need now is intuition. To get out of yellow into turquoise, you need to distrust your mind and to trust intuition instead. Let go of thinking. Then you're in turquoise. Turquoise is the color of many gurus, many famous healers, maybe famous artists, inventors, starting pioneers of new systems, religions, people who are in tune with their intuition, who let go of thinking and are in tune with their body and their intuition, who can really celebrate the newness, who are open to new stuff, and who are very altruistic and community oriented. For a long time, turquoise was considered to be the aim, the goal, the end. It's not. The strengths of turquoise are its weaknesses, because you have to realize that this is not the end game. This is the beginning. What you have experienced and tasted up till now is only the first %. To get to the next 99% is to go back into the pain. The pain that you think you have dealt with already, but you haven't. And to go back into the pain, to leave the top of the mountain and to go down into the valley again and find your inner trauma and heal it. It's coral, the third color of the second tier, also called indigo. Coral, indigo, they really clean house. This is a necessary step. Many people ask me, why is this necessary to go back there? Because it's holding you back. If you don't go through coral, you're likely stuck in spiritual bypassing, and everything you imagine that you are, you're not. You're satisfied with the first %. And you're scared of the 99% that are to come now. And you can only hold your ground if you look at your very, very deepest, darkest and oldest fears. The strength of coral is that you can do this. You can do this deep diving and you can survive it. Even if you sometimes think it will be the end of you. You can survive it. The problem of coral is that, of course, you can get stuck in trauma therapy because what you're trying to heal is your false self. Your false self will never be truly healed because in itself it is false. Also, you can get stuck in a negative worldview that you can see, for example, Nietzsche or Richard Grennan. They have a very critical negative worldview, which is typical for coral. So, at some point, after years of deep diving and trauma healing, and getting to know your personality and disidentifying from it, you have to have a personality, you have to have an ego first to be able to then let it go in coral. You have to let this negativity go. You have to let this addiction to trauma healing go at some point to enter teal. Coral is the most realistic color. But you don't know yet all realities. You know one reality. To enter other realities, you have to get into teal. And to get into teal, you have to let go. Teal or violet is ultimate surrender. You're surrendering to a higher power. Call it God or something else. Doesn't matter. But you're surrendering to it. And let it run your life instead of trying to run it yourself, of trying to control it. You're giving up all control. Every last little bit of it. The fear that comes up here is, if I let go, will I end up under the bridge as a bum? Even this you have to let go. You will not end up as a bum under a bridge, but you have to take it into consideration and accept the possibility. Teal is letting go, letting everything go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. No matter where it leads to. And even if you fall and even if you die, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? The personality who cares will diminish. You will see and accept that you never have been, never had been in control in the first place. Now here in teal or violet, you actually get to the place that turquoise could be. The beginning of turquoise is almost completed in teal. It feels like being in a new country, in a new world, like a stranger in a strange land. But nevertheless, there's inner peace. This is the first time in your life where you feel real inner peace. And your inner dialogue stops. Teal often is some kind of religious experience. It feels like you have met the divine in some way or another. This is the fourth color of the second tier, but there's still two more to come. The strength of teal is also its weakness. Again, the beauty of this divine experience, the beauty of feeling peace and love, can hold you back to go into plum, the next color, the fifth color of the second tier. I use those terms teal, plum and aubergine because Peter Mary started to use these terms about 20 years ago. Although Ken Wilber uses a violet, ultraviolet and clear light. but I'm used to using teal, plum and aubergine, so I will just keep it like that. So plum is a color of absolute neutrality. Everything feels absolutely neutral. Plum is the color of non-duality. All these dual things like good and bad, comfortable, uncomfortable, right, wrong, they fall away, along with positive and negative emotions. Even this positive experiencing of oneness and peace that you have experienced in teal, they fall away on the one hand, but also they are replaced by an even deeper peace, by an even truer peace. Plum, the fifth color of the second tier, is the first color that deserves the term enlightenment. It's still not full enlightenment, but it's the first color that deserves the term enlightenment. And while teal is the second tier level of blue, of religion, and it has a religious feel, plum is the mirror of orange. The strength of orange is to cut through bullshit and see everything in a very neutral and scientific way. Similarly, plum will cut through all hazes and veils like a knife, but not anymore in this egoistic, destructive, analytical way as orange has done. It can cut through all appearances in a synthetic way. In plum, you have relinquished the use of your mind, of your analytical dual mind, and can now download direct knowledge from whatever the big thing is. From unity, from the absolute, you're able to download knowledge directly, undiluted. There's a knowing. There's a knowing that this is what it is. And it has nothing to do with the ego. It has nothing to do with feeling better. To the contrary, everything feels quite normal. It's an anti-climactic experience, plum. Plum is the big disillusionment. Now, all the romantic bullshit falls away and is exposed. Everything that you heard about enlightenment, you understand now, was stories, misunderstandings, wrapping the icing on the cake, but not the cake itself. Now you can taste the cake. And it tastes very, very normal. But you can taste everything exactly. Now you are a human adult. Now you're not a child anymore. Now in this non-dual neutrality, you also can get stuck. This is the place where people like Eckhart Tolle or Sadhguru talk from. They have this amazing charisma of clarity and simplicity, and they have an answer to everything. They have presence. In teal you have this loving presence, and in plum you have this very neutral, simplistic presence. Again, Eckhart Tolle is a perfect example. Yeah, how this way he sometimes sniggers and laughs about himself, very, very selfless. Eckhart Tolle talks about frequency holding, just holding space, just being present, not trying to incorporate anything or show anything, but just to be there, being there. Now this is of course what everyone thinks enlightenment is, but it's still not full enlightenment. The next color is aubergine, or clear light, the sixth and last color of the second tier. And what could that be? This plum is already that peaceful and non-dual. What could aubergine be? Aubergine is the green of the second tier. Green is a rebellion against everything that previously was. Green rebels against first tier as a whole, against this personality fixation as a whole. So what does aubergine rebel against? The typical aubergine gurus are UG or Tony Parsons, almost anti-gurus. They say there is nothing there. Even the idea of enlightenment is a joke. It's all a big misunderstanding. We're trying to copy great masters of the past, like Jesus and Mohammed and Buddha and so on. But we cannot copy anyone's path. We have to find our own path. And there's also the realization that we are not alone in this boat. Just like green realizes that we have to save the environment of the whole planet, not just in the city we live in, aubergine realizes that we have to raise the consciousness of all of humanity, of every single human being, and not just of me and myself and maybe a small group. Aubergine means to let go of the last few vestiges of belief, of personality, of knowledge, of still trying to get somewhere, still trying to control something, still trying to be someone, still trying to help others and so on. All of this you have to let go. Aubergine is the total annihilation of a density that we call I. But we have to go through the process of creating a personality and a soul first, before we can let it go. First the personality and then even the soul. That's still not the last point. The last point, the end of the journey, if there is an end of the journey, cannot be the perfection of the individual. It has to be the perfection of the whole, or nothing at all. So many aubergine gurus, they go into this nihilism. They say there is nothing, not even time. It's all an illusion. It's all just games. There is no aim, there is no enlightenment. There's only a personality hoping that there is. In the end, there's only presence, there's only the now, there's only the divine playing with itself. And just as green has a huge problem getting into yellow, because it's the last color of the first tier, and the jump from one tier to another is much more difficult than from color to color within the same tier. Just as green has this problem to jump into yellow, to let go of this personality shit, aubergine also has a problem of letting go of this nihilism, of this fixation with oneness or emptiness or nothingness, whatever you want to call it. Because there is a third tier. There is a third tier. And most people never get to this third tier because there is a distinct possibility to actually physically die. The transformation from second tier to third tier, from aubergine to the first color of the third tier, is potentially lethal. It's not only the final and ultimate annihilation of the last vestiges of your ego. It can also be physical death. And it feels like it too. Or at least a transformation of the physical body as well. The first tier is an exploration of the gross realm, of the physical realm. The second tier is an exploration of the subtle or vital realm. Now the third tier is an exploration of the mental realm, or the causal realm. In this causal realm there are no more universal laws. Everything is possible. You have resisted every temptation of the physical realm and of the subtle realm. Only then can you enter the mental realm. You cannot be tempted anymore by fame, power, money, anything of that kind. There's only one last challenge remaining: death. We human beings are mortal. We usually die at about 70 or 80 years of age. Our time here is limited. And most of the time, once you reach aubergine, you're already probably rather old than young. So there's even less time. So these fears of death, of non-existence, of loneliness, if you can let go of those as well, if you're not afraid to die, if you're not afraid to not exist, if you're not afraid to be alone, if you're not afraid to be wrong, if you're not afraid to give up everything, if you're not afraid to be a true selfless servitor of the divine consciousness and the overall human consciousness, then you can transform from second into third tier. And at any given time in human history, there are only a handful of people who were able to do that and then maintain it. That's the next thing, is how to maintain it. So at some point in history there were 0 people at that level, and sometimes there were only 1 and 2 in the whole world. Right now we have more than 10. In aubergine there is no such thing as evolution of consciousness or evolution of human beings, because there's only this moment. Nothing can or could ever change. In the third tier there's a rediscovery of the human consciousness, of the overall global or universal consciousness, and a sort of evolution of consciousness. But there is no person left. In the third tier there is no one left. People who are in the third tier are actually not people anymore. They died already, and they're just willing servitors of the divine consciousness. There is no individuum left. This is what is called in India and what I call full enlightenment, but actually it's the wrong term, because it's dissolving. There is no enlightened being left there, sitting there. What's sitting there is a reflection of the divine, fulfilling its purpose in the divine drama. So this is not a state of consciousness that someone can want to be at, because you won't be anymore. There is no more Aurobindo or Bernadette or Tony or Jennifer or whoever left. There's only the unnameable, indescribable great nothingness that has often been described as a very, very intense light, like the sun. And thus the term enlightenment is not such a bad one. It only has to be clear that no one can enter there into this light. You have to die, and sometimes you actually die physically. Sometimes there's only a physical hull left that can then be a servitor to the divine consciousness, and sometimes actually physical death happens and nothing is left. This happens around Hawkins scale 700. Everything after 700 is very, very hard for the body to take. Once you enter the mental realm and beyond, the physical, the gross body starts to suffer. So this was a summary of Spiral Dynamics second tier, from yellow to aubergine, and even further to third tier, which is very, very rare. I hope this is helpful to you on your journey to discern where you are and how to progress and where you could be or get stuck. Thank you to all my Patreons. Thank you for joining me as a Patreon. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and see you soon. I am available on Patreon and per email.